Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And good evening and welcome to the Reaver of Common Sense, making sense out of the senseless, right here on SHR Media, conservative media done right. If you've been watching the news for the last 48 hours, you know the world just changed. We're witnessing the systematic dismantling of a 47-year-old terror regime in Iran. This just isn't another skirmish or a diplomatic incident. This is a historic, transformational shift in the global order. While the experts in D.C. are clutching their pearls and the Hollywood elites are spinning wild conspiracy theories, something amazing is happening. Common sense is finally being applied to foreign policy. We're going to talk about the 48 leaders, it might be more now, removed from the board, the true cost of their mission, and why some people in our own government seem more worried about the safety of a terror regime than they do about the American people. We've got a lot to get through tonight. We're going to look at the Berlin Wall moment happening in the Middle East, the sudden concern over sleeper cells from the open border crowd, and why John Fetterman is suddenly the only guy in the left willing to tell the truth. Buckle up, it's time to stop the nonsense and get back to reality. This is the Reaver of Common Sense. Don't forget, SHR Media merch is here, and it's built for people who refuse to sit quietly while the nonsense runs wild. From bold logo t-shirts to gear that makes a statement without saying a word, this isn't just merch, it's a signal. You stand for freedom, you stand for accountability, you stand where truth lives. Wear it, share it, live it. Don't forget to grab your SHR Media merch today and represent common sense wherever you go. And before we go any further, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and share the stream like your freedom depends on it, because it just might. Every click helps us punch through big tech censorship, drown out the media noise, and make sure common sense has a fighting chance. We'll have to start today with a heavy heart and a hard reality check. Last night, March 1st, the fog of war claimed a devastating price. I think we're up to 3 U.S. F-15E Strike Eagles flying in direct support of Operational Epic Flurry went down over Kuwait. Early reports are coming in, and they are pointing to every commander's worst nightmare, an apparent friendly fire incident. As a former first responder, I know that when things move this fast, when you have a massive regional coalition, hundreds of sorties, and a quartered regime in Tehran lashing out, the margin for error disappears. These pilots were the tip of the spear and the ones taking the fight to the IRGC to ensure we don't have to fight them on our own soil. The media is going to use this tragedy to call for retreat. They're going to use it to say the mission is too complex. But common sense tells you that freedom isn't free. And the battlefield is a place of brutal split-second decisions. We don't honor these fallen aviators by backing down. We honor them by fixing the coordinated failures and fixing the job they were sent there to do. Our prayers with the family of those crewmen tonight, and we are waiting for more details on the how and the who. It seems friendly fire was the cause. But one thing's for certain, the cost of ending this 47-year-old threat just went up, and the resolve of the American people must go up with it. But while we mourn the cost of this mission, the regional stakes are escalating in real time. Because even as coalition force assess what happened in the skies over Kuwait, another front just ignited, one that could reshape the entire balance of power in the Gulf. And folks, the secret's out. The stakes just hit the stratosphere. While D.C. talking heads were busy crying about diplomatic norms, we've now learned that the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman wasn't just watching from the sidelines. Behind the scenes, MBS was reportedly urging Trump to finish the job once and for all. His message was simple. Anything less than the total dismantling of the IRGC would only leave a wounded and more dangerous Tehran to deal with later. But Iran just made the biggest mistake in its 47-year history. In a desperate, cornered animal maneuver, Tehran launched a drone strike on Rashad Tanore. I know I'm butchering the name. Ra Tanoshra oil refinery in Saudi Arabia. We are talking about one of the world's most critical energy hubs. Saudi air defenses intercepted the drone, but the falling debris sparked fire that forced a temporary shutdown. This is the common sense reality. Iran didn't just hit a refinery. They hit the global economy, and they hit the sovereignty heart of the Sunni world. The response has been immediate. MBS has authorized maximum military preparedness, and as we speak, Gulf states are convening an emergency alliance call. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Bahrain, and Qatar are drawing a line in the sand. For decades, the mullahs used the axis of resistance to bully their neighbors. Well, that axis just snapped. If these Arab powers formally enter the fight alongside the U.S. and Israel, the Islamic Republic isn't just fighting a Western enemy. They are facing a unified regional coalition that they cannot survive. The mullahs wanted a war. They just didn't realize they'd be fighting the entire neighborhood. What makes the refinery such a flashpoint is its role in global energy stability. Even a temporary disruption sends signals through international markets, impacts shipping insurance rates, and forces governments to reassess supply security. Tehran understood exactly what it was targeting. This is not just a military strike. It was an economical warfare. By aiming at energy infrastructure, Iran attempted to raise the global cost of confronting them. The calculation was simple: create enough financial anxiety and political pressure so that the Western leaders hesitate. Instead, the move appears to have unified the very coalition Iran hoped to fracture. Energy-producing states do not tolerate threats to their lifelines. And when that threat is unmistakably linked to Tehran, the diplomatic ambiguity disappears, folks. Strategically, this escalation may prove to be the regime's miscalculation. Rather than isolating the United States and Israel, the drone strike risks transforming a regional confrontation into a broad defensive alignment across the Gulf, one that Tehran is ill-equipped to understand over the long term. But when external pressures mount this quickly, the real instability begins inside the regime itself. Military setbacks can be absorbed. Economical pain can be managed. What cannot be easily controlled is internal panic at the highest level of power. And that's exactly what we're seeing unfold in Tehran. If you're looking at the headlines and wondering why there's a sudden delay in naming a successor to the Ayatollah Khamenei, let's apply some common sense to the chaos coming out of Tehran over the last 48 hours. The supreme leader is dead, confirmed on February 28th, but the throne is still sitting empty. Why? Because the remaining leadership is absolutely terrified. Right now, Iran has activated Article, I think it's 111 of its constitution, setting up a temporary three-man council. They aren't doing this out of love for committee meetings. They're doing it because the decapitation strategy being used by U.S. and Israel forces. And I can't remember the gentleman's name, The one that was picked to be the replacement was already killed. They know anybody they pick to be the Ayatollah right now is just going to get taken out fast. So what they have is Mossad Pezeshkian is the president. Gholam Hossein Moshinizi is the judicial chief. And Alavi Zaharafi, a senior cleric. Yes, I know I'm butchering their names, and I don't care. Think about it. We just saw over 40 high-ranking officials liquidated in the initial wave of Operation Epic Fury. The mullahs know that the second they put a crown on one man's head, that head goes straight into the crosshairs, and they are literally too scared to lead. And it's not just fear. It's total logistic collapse. The 88-member assembly of experts, the guys who are supposed to vote on a new leader, can't even meet. Between the rolling strikes on Tehran and a near total internet blackout, they can't get in a room together without wondering if a bunker buster is coming through the ceiling. So who's actually running the circus? Reports point to Ali La Rajani. He was reportedly handed a paramount security role by Khamenei just days before he was taken out. He is the one behind the curtain trying to keep the regime from sliding into a total internal civil war. They've declared 40 days of mourning, but that's just a ceremonial smokescreen. It's a 40-day window to try to find someone, anyone, suicidal enough to take the job. Whether it's Hossein Khomeini or Arafi, the reality is the same. This leadership by committee isn't a strategy. It's a survival tactic for a regime that knows its time is up. Oh, where are we now? Let's see anything good. But internal chaos inside Tehran is only one side of the equation. While the regime scrambles to survive behind closed doors, the external pressure is becoming more organized, more public, and far more coordinated. Because this just isn't about a collapsing leadership structure anymore. It's about who is standing together as that collapse unfolds. While the critics in D.C. are busy hand-wringing, the rest of the world is actually getting organized. We are seeing a historic level of cooperation between the United States, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Qatar. These nations have just released a joint statement condemning Iran's recent reckless missile and drone attacks. Now think about the common sense for that for a second. These are countries that don't always see eye to eye on everything, but they are unified on one thing. They are done with the Iranian regime's bullying. This is the Trump effect in action. Instead of the U.S. acting as the world lone policeman, while everyone else complains, we are seeing a coalition of the willing. These Gulf nations aren't just sitting back. They are standing at the podium with us, identifying the source of the problem. For 47 years, the regime in Tehran has banked on the idea that they could divide the West from the Arab world. They thought they could use proxy wars to keep everyone at each other's throat. But Operation Epic Fury has done the opposite. It has catalyzed a unified front that is stronger than anything we've seen in decades. When Saudi Arabia and Qatar are standing on the same condemnation of Iranian aggression as the United States, the game is over for mullahs. The stability the media craves isn't found in appeasement. It's found in a group of powerful nations finally saying enough is enough. This is what real diplomacy looks like. Not a signed piece of paper in a hotel in Geneva, but a unified military and political front on the ground where it actually matters. And unity on paper is one thing. Sustained action is another. Because statements and condemnation only matter if they're backed by force, coordination, and strategic follow-through. That follow-through is exactly what we're seeing next. If you thought this was a one-and-done message strike, think again. The situation is escalating rapidly as Israel expands its military campaign. We aren't just talking about border skirmishes anymore. We are talking about airstrikes directly targeting Tehran and a major expansion into Lebanon to dismantle Iran-backed Hezbollah militants. This is the fury in Operation Epic Fury. President Trump has already signaled that this U.S.-Israel military assault could continue for weeks, not days. Now let's look at the strategy here. And let's get it back to that statement there. That it could continue for weeks, not days. He said it before we even hit him. He's been saying it for a while now. This would not be a matter of days. It would be a matter of weeks. They knew we weren't going to be able to do this in a 1 or 2 night strike. We're taking out all the important targets. We have taken out so much of the infrastructure of Iran. They're getting low on missiles. Russia's not coming to their aid. Russia just basically went, sorry for your loss. Have a good day. China's not stepping in. North Korea, they're calling up Donald Trump going, oh, we still all right, aren't we? We're still all right. You're no mad at me. Because he's looking at it. He saw what happened to Maduro. He's seen what happened to the supreme leader. He knows that could happen to him. Cuba is next. That's going to fall in a matter of weeks, maybe months, but that's going to be falling. So underneath Donald Trump's second term, we'll see the fall of Venezuela. It's that shithole of a country that's getting turned around and will be great again. Iran is going to get turned around, and that extreme Muslim ruling is going to be out the door. As I said, Cuba, they have nothing right now. They're a matter. I think if we sneezed on them, they would collapse. They're so bad. Russia's not doing that great, and everybody thinks China is so stable, and they're not. They have been falsifying their financials. They're losing businesses now that are coming back to America. They're screwed on oil because they were getting their oil from Venezuela and Iran. So they just lost a shitload of oil. So their military power just crapped the bed, so to speak. So what's going on in the Middle East? It has a far-reaching grip on these countries. This is more than just Iran. Venezuela's was more than just Venezuela's. And that's the problem. People are looking at this one-dimensional when there are several dimensions to what's going on. It's a domino effect that's going to happen. Yes, I know. Gas went up today a little bit. It's going to happen. Iran's going to do everything it can to try to put some kind of financial pressure on the world to back down and leave them be. We're past that point now. We are way past that. They have to step down. They have to leave. They have to give up power. There's no other way to end this. I don't understand a lot of this panicking that's going on. Talking about total war. let's look at the strategy by hitting at the heart of the regime in Tehran and simultaneously cutting off their most powerful proxy in Lebanon. The U.S. and Israel are effectively putting the entire axis of resistance in a vice grip. You already have, and I believe we're going to be talking about it later, Lebanon has already pretty much banned Hezbollah from doing anything in the country. Lebanon's getting leveled right now, and they want nothing to do with it. And they know the only way to stop it is they got to stop Hezbollah. And they're trying to do something now. But right now, Israel's pinpoint precision taking out Hezbollah one by one. They are systematically stripping away the regime's ability to project power or hide behind their proxies. And the media is panicking and talking about total war. But let's look at the common sense reality. You can't perform surgery on a cancer if you only cut out half the tumor. If you're going to stop the head of the snake in Tehran, you have to deal with the fangs in Lebanon at the same time. What this signals operationally is intent. A campaign measured in weeks means logistics, intelligence cycles, and allied coordinations are already structured for sustained pressure. This is not improvisation, it's phased execution. It also reshapes the regional calculus. Hezbollah has long functioned as Tehran's forward shield, creating distance between the regime and direct consequences. By expanding operations into Lebanon while striking Tehran itself, that protective buffer erodes. The message is clear. Geographic will no longer insulate leaders from accountability. There is a deterrent ripple effect as well. Other hostile actors in the region are watching closely. When they see proxies degrade in tandem with Central Command, they reassess their own exposure. The cost of alignment with Tehran suddenly looks far higher than it did just a week ago. Trump is making it clear. The era of half measures is over. This is sustained, high-intensity campaign designed to break the back of a regime that has spent decades thinking it was untouchable. We are seeing a fundamental shift in how the West deals with bullies. And for the first time in a long time, the bullies are the ones who are terrified. But when the pressure hits the head of the network, the shock travels outward. Proxies that once acted with impunity suddenly have to decide whether to escalate or survive. And in Lebanon, that decision just became unavoidable. Sorry about that. In a move that many thought we would never see, the Lebanese government is finally trying to take its country back. Lebanese Prime Minister has officially announced a total ban on all Hezbollah military and security activities. Let's be clear about what's happening here. For decades, Hezbollah has operated as a state within a state, using Lebanese soil to launch Iranian-funded terror without the government's permission. But after Hezbollah launched a reckless rocket and drone attack this morning, targeting massive Israel retaliatory strikes on Beirut, the Lebanese PM has had enough. He's called the group's action irresponsible and suspicious, stating that they only provide pretext for further aggression. He is restricting Hezbollah's strictly to a political sphere and has ordered security forces to prevent any further attacks originating from Lebanese territories. This is the common sense breakdown. Lebanon is a beautiful country that has been held hostage by an Iranian proxy for 47 years. By declaring all Hezbollah military operations illegal, the Lebanese government is signaling to the world and to the 47th president that they are ready to break the chains. They know that with the head of the snake being dealt with in Tehran, the fangs in Lebanon are losing their venom. If the Lebanese military actually steps up to dismantle these arsenals, we are looking at the end of the most dangerous proxy in the Middle East. It's time for Lebanon to belong to the Lebanese again, not the mullahs. Oh, it's going by pretty fast tonight. I want to thank everybody that's in the chat. Whether you like me or hate me, I don't care. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank the mods for making sure everything is staying kosher. And all I ask is for respect in the chat room. Respect the mods. Disagree. You don't need to be rude about it. All right. While the government in the Middle East are recalibrating in real time, the political reaction back home is just as revealing. Because when decisive action is taken abroad, you quickly find out who believes in strength and who is instinctively resist it. If you had John Fetterman as the voice of reason on your 2026 bingo card, go ahead and collect your winnings. We are seeing a massive fracture in the Democrat Party, and Senator Fetterman just took a sledgehammer to it. He went on air and absolutely blasted his own colleagues and the talking heads over at CNN for their constant knee-jerk criticism of these strikes. Fetterman asked one question the mainstream media refuses to answer. When was this outcry from the left when the Iranian regime was busy executing 40,000 of their own young people? Silence. Total silence from the human rights crowd back then. Then the second a U.S. president takes out the leaders responsible for that butchery, suddenly they're concerned about stability. Let me get the video up for you. Give me 1 second. And I'm still at awe with Fetterman of late and just being the voice of reason. All right, here we go.
Destroying the Iranian leadership. And there wasn't any kind of outcry from parts of the left after Iran executed about 30,000 of their young people that were just simply protesting for democracy. Why can't we just objectively say what Israel has been able to accomplish, since they were calling for a ceasefire back in 2024? Hamas would be still there. Sinwar would be alive. Hezbollah would be allowed to fire thousands of rockets into Israel now too. And then now Houthis too. And Iran would be able to be perceived as a strong military presence in the region. Turns out it really wasn't effective. So here we are, we're in a much better place now. If anyone wants those things that they claim that they do, like peace, and they can never allow Iran to acquire a nuclear bomb, when someone actually did that could actually make sure that's possible. And I'm open to a better opportunity for more peace and prosperity for the Iranian people, for more security that Israel deserves that. So that's the point. And this was not an illegal war based on terms of what the War Powers Act is.
And that's what I'm getting tired of hearing from both left and right idiots. This was not an illegal action. The War Powers Act gives the president 30 to 60 days. There's not even boots on the ground. This is an air strike. President after president has done this without congressional approval. It's just people trying to make political point because they don't like who's in office. And the Republicans have done it to Democrat presidents also. And I've disagreed with them also. It's just, come on, there we go. It's allowed. We are just getting started, folks. This is the anatomy of a modern political warfare, and we're only peeling back the first layer. Don't go away. We will be right back in like a minute or two.
Come listen to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show. Live on select and exclusive Tuesday and Thursday nights. at 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Rumble channel, SHR Media YouTube channel, X, Twitch, Spreaker, and wherever great conservative podcasts are found. BZ, your conservative Sherpa, guides you through the maelstrom of Democrat, leftist, and globalist lies, chaos, deceit, and betrayal. Raised as a free-range child with dirt, stains, mud, and freedom, BZ broadcasts from North Idaho, comfortably surrounded by actual normal people. Jump into our plush, sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent chat room on rumble.com. Click on live chat to join. Now, with 37% more umbrage and 19% more bulbosity than previous shows, featuring delicious Liberty additives for the best in late-night conservatarian talk radio. BZ reminds you that with great beard comes great responsibility. No chinchillas were harmed, embarrassed, fat-shamed, or the focus of any sarcasm whatsoever in the making of this ad.
Are you looking for a way to boldly express your faith and love for your country? And check out Seven Armors, the premier apparel company for patriotic men of God, where faith meets freedom in style. Our t-shirts are more than just clothing, they're statements. Bold, stylish, and meaningful. From timeless messages to modern designs, we've got something for every patriotic man of God. Wear your beliefs proudly with Seven Armors gear. Don't miss the chance to wear your faith and freedom on your sleeve. Visit 7armors.com today and join the movement. That's the number 7armors.com.
Hey, where do you go when you want real conversation and topics? That's right, you step to the edge. The Edge of Liberty is your home for talk radio the way it was meant to be. I'll be live every Monday and Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network, and we're simulcast on KLRN Radio. We're building something different, Aaron. We just want you to be a part of it. I'll see you on the edge.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And welcome back to the Reaver of Common Sense. I am your host, Jersey Joe. I am here to make sense out of the senseless right here on SHR Media, conservative media done right. For those in the chat, thank you for being here. Thank you for the mods. I appreciate every single one of you. And for everyone listening or watching across all the platforms, thank you for being here. Don't forget, SHR Media merch is here, and it's built for people who refuse to sit quietly while the nonsense runs wild. For bold logo t-shirts to gear that makes statements without saying a word, this isn't just merch, it's a signal. You stand for freedom, you stand for accountability, you stand where truth lives. Wear it, share it, live it. Grab your SHR Media merch today and represent common sense wherever you go, only on shrmedia.com. Before we go any further, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and share the stream like your freedom depends on it, because it just might. Every click helps us break through big tech censorship, drown out the media noise, and make sure common sense has a fighting chance. And let's get back to John Fetterman. Saying I agree with John Fetterman, I never thought those words would come out of my lips. But I will give credit where credit is due. I don't always have to agree with somebody to agree with something they say. And Fetterman's point is pure common sense. He's asking why we can't just objectively look at what has been accomplished. The Middle East and the world is in a much better place when the head of the snake is being dealt with. It's refreshing to see someone on that side of the aisle admit that Israel and the United States have achieved something historic here. While the rest of the far left is busy worrying about escalations, Fetterman is pointing out that escalation happened years ago when Iran started killing its own youth and funding global terror. And here's what really rattled the media class. He didn't hedge. He didn't soften it with 10 layers of academic caution. He simply pointed out the obvious contradiction between performative outrage and selective morality. That kind of clarity is rare in Washington. Exposes how narrative-driven so much of debate has become. This also signals something deeper inside the Democrat coalition. When a sitting senator feels comfortable openly rebuking his own side's media allies. It tells you the internal polling and private conversations are not matching the public outrage machine. And I've talked about this. There's internal polling and the polling we see. The polling they see, they know they're not doing as good as the media says they are. I understand the polls that are out there. Now the polls are showing they're tied. So if they're tied, I would bet the internal polling showing Republicans ahead. I know you guys are going to be in the chat. You don't know what you're talking about. The polls say. We're going to see. I'm not saying there's going to be a red wave. I've never said that, never will. You can keep going on saying there's going to be a blue wave. Go right ahead. I could care less. That's your opinion. You have a right to it. But for what I'm seeing and the rhetoric I'm hearing out of the left, they're already making excuses for the losses. Tells me their internal polling is not as good as they are making it seem to be. They are famous for gaslighting you, giving you propaganda. And the people on the left are so gullible anymore, what they believe whatever is told to them without question. They won't look into it. They'll look at one poll and, oh, that's what it looked. The headline dead, and that's it. Internal polling, I will bet, is showing differently. There is a recognition, even if it's quiet, that voters are exhausted with reflective anti-action rhetoric every time the United States asserts strength. Fetterman's remarks force a broader question. Is opposing everything this administration does a strategy, or is it a reflex? Because if it's a reflex, it's political unsustainability. The American public can disagree on tactics, but they can also recognize when a regime with a decade-long terror record has been significantly weakened. And perhaps most importantly, this moment demonstrates that foreign policy is not as ideological or rigid as cable news would have you believe. When results are visible, when adversaries are clearly on the defensive, and when regional allies are lining up in support, partisan lines start to blur. When even Fetterman is telling CNN to sit down and shut up, you know the narrative is slipping away from them. And while the political class debates tone and television panels argue about optics, the operational reality continues to move forward. Because beyond the rhetoric, beyond the spin, there are measurable results on the battlefield. Results that change the balance of power. And we're moving from a political theater to the cold, hard facts on the ground. President Trump has now confirmed that over 48 high-level Iranian leaders have been neutralized in a series of coordinated U.S.-Israel strikes. Think about that. The number I had when I went through my notes was 48. I believe it's higher now. Hit them again tonight. More have been taken out. And we're not talking about low-level foot soldiers or proxy militia members in a desert somewhere. We're talking about the brains of the operation, the architect of the RIGC, the money men, the commanders who have been calling the shots for decades. This is what Operation Epic Fury looks like. It's a decapitation strike on a scale we haven't seen in modern warfare. The message from the 47th president is clear. The days of strategic patience are over. If you plot against America, if you fund the destruction of the West, there is nowhere on earth you can hide. The media wants to call this destabilizing. But let's use some common sense. Is the world more stable when 48 terror masterminds are alive and planning the next attack, or when they're permanently removed from the board? What makes this moment strategically significant is not just the body count, but the hierarchy that was disrupted. Removing leadership at that level creates confusion, fractures chain of command, and forces surviving operatives in defensive postures. Organizations built on fear, centralized authority do not adapt quickly when the core is shattered. There's also a psychological component that cannot be ignored. For a decade, the regime projected this. You couldn't touch them. There was nothing the Americans do. They were untouchable, insulated by proxies and geography. When senior figures are eliminated in rapid succession, that illusion collapses. How many people are now questioning, ever supporting the Iraqi regime with all the rhetoric that they've told just crumbled right before their eyes? Adversaries begin second-guessing their own security, and allies begin recirculating their alignment. Strategically, this changes the deterrence equation. Instead of absorbing provocative and issuing warnings, tongue-tied tonight, the United States and Israel demonstrated a willingness to impose immediate and personal consequences. That shift alone altered how hostile actors assess risk moving forward. The technical precision of these strikes show a level of intelligence and military cooperation with Israel that is unprecedented. They didn't just hit buildings, they hit the people inside those buildings who were responsible for nearly half a century of bloodshed. This isn't just a win for the United States and Israel. It's a win for every person who wants to live in a world where terrorists are actually held accountable. But battlefield victories overseas always trigger political reaction at home. And the louder the success, the louder the scrambling becomes in Washington. Because once the external threat is confronted directly, the uncomfortable question starts shifting inward. Now let's get into the pure, unadulterated hypocrisy we're seeing from D.C. establishment. Suddenly, literally overnight, the same Democrats who have spent years calling you a conspiracy theorist for worrying about the border are now sounding an alarm. Suddenly, they're terrified that Iranian terror sleeper cells might be active right here on U.S. soil. Think about the irony here. These are the same politicians who fought tooth and nail to keep the southern border open. They're the ones who oversaw a system where millions of gotaways disappeared into our heartland with zero vetting. But now that President Trump is actually taking the fight to the regime that sponsored these terrorists, they want to act like they're the guardians of national security. It's a joke, but it's a dangerous one. They want you to be afraid of the consequences of strength, while they spent years making us vulnerable through weakness. And here's the kicker. While they're worrying about these sleeper cells, they're the exact same people who want to strip you of your Second Amendment right. Let that sink in. They let the threat in. They're now admitting the threat is here. And their solution is to make sure you are unarmed and defenseless in your community. That isn't policy. That's a betrayal of the American people. And notice the pattern. When the border crisis was unfolding in real time, we were told not to believe our own eyes. When agents testified about being overwhelmed, they were dismissed. When communities raised concerns about vetting failures, they were labeled extremists. Now the very scenarios warned about is being used as a political talking point. This isn't leadership. It's damage control. It's an attempt to rewrite the narrative after years of policy decisions that prioritize optics over enforcement. You don't get to dismantle deterrence. But it's a new tongue and I'm breaking it in. Mock border security and then pivot into fear-based messaging the moment geopolitical tensions rise. The American people understand something simple that the Washington pretends not to. Security is preventive. You don't wait for a crisis to start taking it serious. You don't gamble on good intentions when dealing with regimes that openly fund terror networks. Broader integrity isn't xenophobia. It's basic statecraft. And here's the broader issue. If government fails at the most fundamental responsibility, controlling who enters the country, then every other national security conversation becomes reactive instead of strategic. You can't project strength abroad while neglecting sovereignty at home. The two are inseparable. If you worry about sleeper cells, the solution isn't to stop the strikes in Iran. The solution was to secure the border 10 years ago. It's called common sense, and it's something Washington has been allergic to for a long time. But before this turns into just another political argument about policy and blame, we have to ground ourselves into something more serious. Because beyond the rhetoric, beyond the partisan fights, there are real men and women wearing the uniform who carry the weight of every decision made in Washington. And tonight we honor that cost. This is the part of the show where we have to stop and remember that Operation Epic Fury isn't just a headline or a set of statistics. It has a human cost. CENTCOM has officially confirmed that at least 3 U.S. service members were killed during these operations. Now, as I said, that's when I wrote my notes. I think it may have gone up by 1 more since then. But now, as a former first responder, I know that service isn't just a word you throw around. It's a commitment that these men and women make, knowing they might be asked to give everything. And these 3 heroes did exactly that. They stood in the gap to ensure that the 48 leaders who talked about in the last segment can never hurt another American family. The critics and the talking heads are going to use these deaths to argue that the mission isn't worth it. They'll call it reckless, but let's use some common sense. These brave Americans didn't give their lives for reckless cause. They gave their lives to end a 47-year threat. They gave their lives so that sleeper cells don't become a reality in our backyard. We don't just mourn them, we honor the weight of their sacrifice. There's a massive difference between a senseless death and a noble one. These heroes died finishing a fight that has been dragging on since 1979. Their absence will be felt in a quiet way that never makes headlines. Empty seats at dinner tables, unfinished plans, milestones that won't be there to see. Behind every uniform is a family that carries the burden long after the cameras turn off. And that reality should force seriousness into this conversation. Decisions of this magnitude are never abstract. They are measured in names and folded flags and a lifelong impact on spouses, children, and parents who now carry both pride and grief at the same time. Honoring them means more than a moment of silence. It means ensuring that their sacrifice contributes to a durable outcome, that the objective they help secure is not squandered by political hesitation or short-term memory. Our thoughts and prayers are with their families, but more than that, our resolve should be with them. We owe it to these 3 patriots to make sure that the mission they died for is completed and that the regime they were fighting is dismantled once and for all. And when sacrifice reaches this level, history has a way of accelerating. Moments paid for in blood tend to mark turning points, not just in strategy, but in errors. Because what we are witnessing now is bigger than a single operation. It is the possible collapse of something that has shaped global instability for nearly half a century. Folks, we are watching history unfold in real time, and it's time for some serious common sense. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has been a cancer on the world stage, exporting terror, destabilizing the Middle East, and chanting death to America while the globalist elite played footsies with them. But look at what's happening right now. We have the Iranian Americans coming out and telling the truth that the mainstream media is too terrified to touch. This isn't just about military operation. This is a Berlin Wall moment. We're talking about a transformational shift for humankind. Let me pop this video up for you real quick.
Their dislike of Donald Trump, the President Trump, and their feelings of international conflicts going on. This is about national security. This is about what is possible in the Middle East. This is about being a good neighbor, good partner to the Gulf states and what their aspirations are. This is about supporting the people of Venezuela. This is about dismembering our relationship with, or not dismembering, but resetting our relationship with China. Right now, 55% of the oil production that Iran produces goes to China despite sanctions. You want to support the people of Ukraine? You want to end that war? You have to. There is no getting around dismembering this Islamic Republic. It is non-negotiable. It is not a want to have. It is a have to have. And it's not just for the Iranian people. I think you have to trust the Iranian people. We know this government better than anyone else. When you dismember and decapitate this regime, you are going to see a change in the Middle East, in Venezuela, in China, in Ukraine. And I think, quite frankly, their ideology has really, it's caused a lot of problems for us worldwide. We need to take it seriously. And I think at this point, we have a tremendous opportunity. This will be like ending the Soviet Union, the Berlin Wall. This is a transformational moment for humankind, for security. And as an American, this is in our interest to complete it. So I am a Democrat. I have been a huge Democrat. I am incredibly disappointed with my party. I do not see myself in them in this moment.
And there's a lot saying that. There's a lot saying that. When the Berlin Wall came down, it wasn't just about bricks and mortar. It was the collapse of a soul-crushing ideology. That is what we are seeing today. This regime has held its own people hostage and threatened the West for nearly half a century. For decades, the political class told us this regime was permanent. They told us it was too entrenched, too dangerous, too complicated to confront directly. We were told containment was the only option. We were told that diplomacy meant endless concessions while rockets and proxy militia kept spreading chaos across the region. Meanwhile, the Iranian people were paying the price. Young protesters disappeared. Journalists were silenced. Women were beaten in the street for daring to push back against medieval mandates. The regime survived not because it was strong, but because the free world lacked the will to challenge it decisively. That's why this moment feels different. It isn't just about military capability. It's about political resolve. When the will changes, outcome changes. The illusion of invincibility cracks. And once that illusion cracks, history starts moving fast. The comparison to the Berlin Wall matters because walls don't fall when everyone is comfortable. They fall when pressure builds for years and then finally meets a decisive push. The Iranian regime has been under pressure internally from its people and externally from sanction and isolation. What we're witnessing now is the tipping point. And let's be clear, transformational moments are never neat. They're disruptive. They create uncertainty, but they also create opportunity, the opportunity for oppressed population to breathe, for regional powers to realign, and for the West to reset the terms of engagement after decades of reactive policy. President Trump isn't just sending a message with these strikes. He's signaling the end of an era of appeasement. It's time for the Democrat Party to wake up, get past their personal vendettas, and realize that a world without this terror regime is a safer world for everyone. This is the moment where you either on the side of freedom and Western civilization, or you're standing in the way of history. To wrap up the show, I want to give you a little common sense toolkit to help you cut through the noise you're hearing on the news. You're going to hear talking heads use the word war over and over again to try and scare you. But there's a massive legal and tactical difference between what is happening right now and all-out war. A military strike is a surgical operation. It has a specific target, like the 48 leaders we talked about earlier, and a specific objective. It's like a police officer taking out a precision shot to stop a threat. You go in, you neutralize the danger, you stop. It doesn't mean you're moving in to live there. It doesn't mean you're trying to manage their local government for the next 30 years. War, on the other hand, is a total commitment. It's boots on the ground, nation building, long-term occupation. That is exactly what the American people are tired of, and that is exactly what the forever war crowd in D.C. always drift towards. But what President Trump is doing here, and what Operation Epic Fury represents, is the use of overwhelming precision power to end a threat without getting bogged down in the sand for another 2 decades. The critics want to cry every missile a declaration of war because they want to keep us paralyzed. They want us to be afraid to move so that regimes like the one in Tehran can keep attacking us with impunity. But common sense tells you that if someone is shooting at you, return fire isn't starting a war, it's ending the threat. We're seeing a 47-year-old regime crumble because we finally stopped playing by their rules. We're not nation building, we're regime breaking. And that, my friend, is the difference between the failed policies of the past and the common sense of today. Folks, we covered a lot of ground today. From the tactical precision of Operation Epic Fury to the absolute collapse of the expert narrative in Washington and Hollywood. If there's one thing you take away from today's show, let it be this. The world is not a static place. For 47 years, we were told that the regime in Tehran was a permanent fixture, a stability factor we just have to live with. We were told that any move against them would lead to the end of the world. Well, look around. The world isn't ending. A reign of terror is. We're seeing the Iranian people celebrating in the streets. We're seeing Gulf nations finally standing up for their own defense. And we're seeing an American president who understands that peace doesn't come from a signed piece of paper in a fancy hotel. It comes from the strength to remove the people who make peace impossible. The Berlin Wall of the Middle East is coming down. And while the left-wing media spends the next week hand-wringing over decorum or process, remember the American heroes we lost. They didn't die for a process. They died for a result. They didn't die so that common sense could finally prevail. They did die so that common sense could finally prevail over 47 years of failure. That's all the time we have for today. Make sure you follow us on all social. Keep sharing these segments and keep spreading the truth because the mainstream media won't. We're going to keep a close eye on the situation in Tehran and Lebanon as this campaign moves into its second week. I want to thank you for tuning in, for your support. I want to thank everybody in chat, whether you agreed or disagreed. I want to thank the mods. I want to thank everybody listening on all the platforms. We're going to keep an eye. I want to thank you for tuning in and keeping your head on straight in a world that's going a little sideways. If you want more from SHR Media, BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Edge of Liberty with Sackhead Sean 1 hour from now, Mondays and Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mission Ready Men with Big E Jackson, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, noon on East Coast. Beer and Bullstein, I think I said that right. Our news show on Fridays and Saturdays, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And of course, you have me, Reaver of Common Sense with Jersey Joe, every Monday and Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is where we'll leave it tonight. This is the Reaver of Common Sense on SHR Media, conservative media done right, where the truth lives and the nonsense dies screaming. We'll see you next time.